if you're only around people just like you, it limits your growth. But the moment you're around someone who's good at something you're not good at, you actually begin to grow.
We have to become better at who we filter in and out of our lives, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
You can't just have everyone for you. You have to be for other people.
Every successful person I know has had a moment of betrayal by a really close friend. Those people did not let that betrayal jade them to where they could no longer trust people again.
Well, it's been about a month since we've been together, and it feels good to sit in front of you and do a much requested one-on-one conversation that we haven't had since we've started having guests. I think we've done a decent job of having really interesting people and being consistent with that, but you can never give the people what they want.
What are you talking about? Those conversations have been amazing.
I think they've been amazing, but we get a lot of requests for people who just want a one-on-one, me and you, father and son, like the old times.
That's because those are the OGs.
The OGs.
But I love the conversation we've been having. In fact, you've been trying to convince me for so long to have guests, and I always say I just love having conversations with you, but you've won me over. I mean, having the conversation with Will Guidara was for me just epic and life-giving, and talking with Phil Jones, Mark Bone.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness,
Yeah, we've had the GGB girls and Ali Webb, and to have so many amazing guests, Jake Goss. It's been really a unique experience. I've really enjoyed interviewing people and having guests, though it's a completely different dynamic.
Yeah, you couldn't be any different than like John Gordon and Girls Gone Bible.
No, polar opposites. But yeah, I mean, I do find that the unique element to our podcast. Yeah. And we've been traveling all over. We left each other in New York and then have kind of met back in LA, but it's good to be back here.
I mean, you've been everywhere. London, Stockholm, Mexico City.
Yeah, New York, back here. You were in Florida, you were in New York, I think you went to Florida again.
Yeah, it's not quite as exotic to fly to Jacksonville.
We'll address the elephant in the room. You had a little surgery on your eye, so you're wearing some sunglasses.
Yeah, this has been the whole month.
Yeah.
And the way I put it was, or the way I was told was, it's a medical procedure that will have cosmetic benefit. So right now I look hideous, but I'm believing that when the surgery heals up, that I'm going to look awesome.
No, you look great. You look great, and your eyes are healing up nicely, and you can see better, which is amazing.
Yeah. Right now I have a great familiarity and empathy for lizards, because their eyes move differently. Like my right and left eye are not in sync.
Yeah.
And so it's an interesting way of navigating life.
Yeah.
I see both of you.
So there's no one over there, so maybe
that's part of the problem.
So what are some things you want to talk about? Well, blank canvas.
I mean, some of it is whenever we're having conversations with people hear the interview, but you learn a lot about people, and you also hopefully learn a lot about yourself in the process. And so I thought maybe one thing that'd be really fun is just talk about some of the things we've experienced and learned over the past few months. My goodness, I don't think we've actually had a one-on-one conversation even since I came back from El Salvador. Meeting with President Kelly there, and so there's just so many different life experiences. When people ask me, one of the things you need to do to grow, like how can I expand my imagination or increase my intelligence or grow as a human being, one of the things I always tell people is travel. And travel definitely expands who you are as a person, and not everyone has the opportunity to fly to Tokyo or fly to Paris or something like that, although I think those opportunities are available to so many of us. You can find a cheap flight, and find a way to experience the world. But even if you just expand it beyond your normal space, just go to New York or experience San Francisco.
I would say the opposite. Like experience the opposite of what you experience.
Oh, I thought you meant you were
No,
saying the opposite.
no. I agree with
Okay,
you. I
disagree
agree
with
with
me,
you.
all
No,
right.
I agree with you 100%. But I'd say like go find the opposite of what, if you've only experienced America, go find a place that speaks a different language.
Yeah.
And if you can't bear it, like if you can't, take that much culture shock, go to London.
Yeah.
Right? Go to Canada. Go to some place that feels, like safe. But if you really want to push yourself, go somewhere where you got to figure it out.
Yeah. One of the unexpected places for me was when I went to Montreal.
Okay.
I mean, here you go to Canada.
Yeah.
And it's French.
Right.
And it's really beautiful. It has kind of an ancient, old school, old world kind of feel to it. And the people are really unique. I just like experiencing not just new places, but new people, different kind of people in the world. I think that's a part of what helps you expand because people do see the world differently. Also, like when you interact with people who speak multiple languages, part of the interesting thing when I was in Jacksonville is I met several people who spoke 4, 5, 6 different languages.
Wow.
And there is something very unique about.
In Jacksonville?
It's because the event was in the Jacksonville area. I can't pronounce it. It's in Ponte
Verde.
Vidra. They call it Vidra. They say it wrong, but it's Vidra. And so they were the CEOs basically of different companies coming in from Amsterdam and from Germany and England and
okay, so they had an international event in Florida.
Yeah, South America, and so they were coming from all over the world.
Okay,
and when you begin to have a conversation with the person who speaks 4 different languages,
right,
you realize their brain just works differently,
right,
than honestly than a person who only speaks one language sometimes.
Yeah.
And so even if you don't speak fluently, just pressing yourself to learn different things, learn different words, learn different cultures, I think is really, really important.
Yeah, download Duolingo and get into it.
Yeah.
One thing I started doing was I was listening to an interview with a guy who that's what he does. He like learns languages and then does translations and all of these things. He's a younger guy too. But he talked about how he would start with the top 1,000 words that country uses in their language. And that's how he starts attacking a language.
That's a good way of doing it.
Oh, that's so smart. He's like, obviously that only works for, the Latin languages really. Mm-hmm. But he's like, but even, I think he speaks Chinese, Mandarin, I think he speaks Russian. He's like, I would start with the verbal first 1,000 words and just learn how to say them. Like, oh, that's really interesting. But yeah, I wonder, it's like if it's only 1,000 words that are holding us back from being somewhat able to speak a different language, like how many words away am I from mastering something? Yeah.
But if you take that just like one, maybe like a half step, remember when we used to shoot a lot of films, they always say split the difference.
Yeah.
Maybe you can split the difference between learning a new language, have a new experience.
Okay. Why is it so important for you?
Have new experiences?
Either one.
Well, because they help you see the world from different perspectives. And I think it helps you be able to engage life more in a more interesting way, in a more creative way, helps solve problems. I know it sounds strange, but I mean, think about it. The moment I think you introduced me to this documentary F1,
the Drive to Survive doc.
Yeah.
And
I don't know if you introduced me or I introduced you, but we got on the chef's table.
Yes, I think you introduced me to that one.
Right. So the moment we're into like culinary arts, right? And we're watching Chef's Table, we're learning something about how humans experience things and see things.
Yeah.
And it actually helped me grow a lot.
Yeah.
As a human being.
Yeah.
And then the moment I'm watching F1, which is a whole different space.
Right.
And I'm absolutely consumed by it and absorbed by it, I start growing and thinking and learning. Oh, you know what it is? It's, that adage of proximity creates not just opportunity, but expansion. That when you have proximity to something, it creates opportunity, right? When you have friends who own restaurants, you have opportunities to go in the restaurant world. If you have friends who are, in different worlds, it opens up opportunities. But it also creates like expansion. Mm-hmm. You begin to grow by what you're in proximity to. So if you're only around people just like you, it limits your growth.
Yeah.
But the moment you're around someone who's good at something you're not good at, you actually begin to grow. And so I think ironically, this is the one upside of maybe entertainment or Netflix and everything else, is that it gives you access to proximity, in a sense, to a world that you may never know. And
so exposure.
Exposure.
Yeah.
And then you're going, oh, wow, that's an interesting way of seeing the world. Oh, I never thought about that. You know, and then if you take that and apply that, I mean, the intense focus that F1 takes, right? The fact that there's a whole team involved in making that car work, all of a sudden gives you a whole different appreciation for teamwork.
I think the teams, for some of them, it's like close to 1,000 people.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, no, Mercedes, I think, has 1,000 people that work on their F1 team.
That's insane.
That's insane.
To make one driver successful, or two drivers.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. To make one driver successful. Right. To have two competitive cars and you're managing two different teams, two different drivers on the same team, right?
Yeah.
It's really unique. No, I watched this documentary on my way back from Mexico City yesterday, and it was called A Compassionate Spy. And it was about a guy named Theodore Hall, who was on the Los Alamos project in the Oppenheimer thing. And I want to say his son, or his best friend's son, wrote a book, I want to say, called Stealing the Fire.
Oh, wow.
It's a really interesting, so they interview, I think his wife and his best friend and him are kind of the focal point of this documentary, and it's like a lot of their kids, but the wife is still alive, and Joan Hall, and it talked about how they basically, his best friend gave him the idea. He was a Russian Jewish man, Russian Jewish kid. They were college kids. They were 18. He got signed to Los Alamos when he was 18 years old, a young physicist. And he ended up at Harvard afterwards. And so he has all these letters and all these conversations. But it's essentially how his best friend said, you have to give these secrets to the Soviet Union. You have to give them to Russia.
Oh, wow.
Because what if my family gets bombed by this, atom bomb? What if and he's looking from a Russian Jewish perspective, like why would, if this is used against the Japanese, to stop the Germans, what happens if we use it against the Russians and we kill Jewish people and we kill, he's thinking about his people, which is really interesting. But it was one of the most fascinating things is there's almost zero remorse for leaking the data. There's no remorse. The wife fully believes she was also part of like the feminist movement. She was also part of the communism movement, like social communist. But she loves movements. And I found it interesting because she self-declares that they were Jewish but atheists. And so it was really interesting because I'm like, oh, you're atheists, whatever religion your background, heritage is from, but they're atheists, self-proclaimed, but they live their entire life trying to find things to join.
That's interesting.
Right? Like
that's a good observation, Aaron.
So there was always, so I'm like, oh, it's interesting if you just maybe join your church.
Or synagogue.
Or temple, then maybe there would have been a sense of this community that you needed, that you didn't have to. So there's this rebellious nature with this like highly intellectual, like, fascination with physics and the sharing of secrets. But it was a really remarkable, it exposed me to, also even in the title, A Compassionate Spy. Like how could a spy be compassionate? But it was really, he when he gave the interview, he gives an interview before he dies, but he goes, why did you do it? He goes, it was out of compassion. If we use this on one person, who are we to be trusted that we won't use it against everyone? And
that's a very rational way of thinking.
It's very logical. And but it went against the core of what I believe as an American. Right? Because you pick a team and you play for it.
Oh, that's good.
But maybe he picked humanity as the team.
Yeah.
Right. So and I don't know. I couldn't tell if it was him being so subversive because it was the reality is that he's stealing fire. So this idea of Sisyphus almost, right? Yeah. That he was forever going to be pushing this boulder up this mountain because the gods were punishing for him for trying to steal fire and to live forever, right? Yeah. But it was interesting to watch it and exposed me to such a different way of thinking, right? Because as Americans, we tend to think that we are always the superheroes. It's the narrative we have in the media. It's the narrative we have in our national media. So often now it's changed a lot. We're the enemy.
Yeah, but you're also Captain America. You love this country.
I love this country, though the anxiety entering this country is so much heavier than entering any of these other countries. Yeah, it's so unique that the personal pressure that we put on ourselves. Anyway,
I think that's really interesting because even though, and I don't want to go too deeply in that, but you're thinking, oh, I need to get to the other side to try to neutralize the danger.
Yeah.
Why didn't anyone decide, well, let's give it to Switzerland?
Let them decide.
Rather than like, okay, let's find the counter opposite.
Yeah.
And like, why don't we give it to someone who's highly neutral and trust power there to try to give a balance of power? So it seems sometimes.
Well, because when you're neutral, you're nothing.
It's interesting.
Right. And
or
also,
you never are a threat.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, they said something in the documentary that was really unique because Russia was technically allies with the U.S. at the time.
That's right.
Because this is World War II, right?
Yeah.
So they lost 20 million people fighting the Germans and Italians.
Yeah.
So, I don't know if there's a larger sacrifice humans, to engage in a war to try to not have Europe being taken over by Nazis. But so it's a really interesting perspective. They didn't see them as the enemy, social communists. They saw them as an ally, and if they're really our ally, we should be sharing this with them.
Yeah.
Right. And yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a situation of the enemy of my enemy is my friend. I don't think that American political ideologies were ever friendly with Russian socialism.
Yeah.
But because of Nazism, because of fascism, it became like the enemy of our enemy
is our friend.
Became our friend.
Yeah.
And so we went to war with people who were against what we were against, but they were not for what we're for, which is a great thing. It's a great lesson in life. Because I remember years ago when the one talk I ever heard T.D. Jakes do, we were both speaking at a business event, and T.D. Jakes said you need to have three kind of people in your life to achieve optimal success. One, you have to have people who are for what you're against, the enemy of your enemy, and you need to have people who are for what you.
No, you just said for what you're against.
Yeah,
for
what you're against. So they join you because you're both against the same thing.
Okay.
So they're not for you, but they're for what you're against.
Right.
And then you have people who need to be for your mission. But then you have to have, he said the reason he achieved the level of success he has is he not only had people who were for what he was against and for what he was for, but there were people who were for him. And I remember when I heard that, I actually thought to myself, I've never given myself permission to have people who are for me.
Yeah, why is that?
There could be, maybe this is going to turn into a therapy session, but I don't know, but I know that was true.
I don't accept that answer.
I just never knew that it was okay.
No, don't accept that either.
I'm just telling you what,
Keep scratching at
it. And so.
No, I'm not done.
And so I think I work with people who we were against the same things.
I'm not done. You're still going on, but we're not done.
And people who were for the same mission.
Do you think you hired people actively that weren't for you?
No, I don't think I even asked the question.
So you would hire people would you hire them based on, or you built your team based on people who were for what you were against or for what you were for?
They were for what I was for.
Okay, but not necessarily for you.
I felt like that was like narcissistic or inappropriate or.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, I just, but ironically, I was for people.
And you were for the individuals.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
Ironically, I was the opposite. I was actually for people. Even when I wasn't for their mission or for what they were against, I would believe in them and advocate for them.
There's a huge relational difference, right? In friendships where it's not just you're both against what you're against, right?
Yeah.
I talk about that a lot. I have friends who are like, if you are friends with someone I don't like, someone who's wronged me, we cannot be friends, right? There are people that in my life that are that intense.
Yeah.
And there are times where I've had to make friend sacrifices because I can't be friends with these people anymore because the people I really do care about and love cannot exist in that space. I'm kind of that person. I kind of need people who are against what I'm against.
Yeah.
But I do find the difference between people who are just for what you're for versus being for what you're for and also for you.
Yeah.
That is that smallest sliver is the most important. It feels like.
I actually think that I didn't have people who were for me because, I hate when people go into childhood trauma.
No, why? You only hate it because you don't do it.
But I think it's related to my own childhood trauma that I grew up without people who were for me. And so I just assumed that would be a wrong expectation. And then when I became a follower of Jesus, I thought, okay, being for Jesus is enough. If people are for Jesus, then we can go, do life together. But I will say that, there are a few talks or a few messages, a few insights in my life that were seismic, and that was one. Because that day I told myself, oh, you need to give yourself permission and believe that there are people out there who will be for you.
Yeah.
And that was a significant shift for me.
Yeah.
And it elevated my life.
Yeah.
But it also like set a higher standard of what friendship really is.
Yeah.
Because it's different to be friendly and to have friends.
Yeah.
And it's one thing to have friends and to have people who are like your band. The band of brothers, or band of brothers and sisters, people who are, what's the phrase, ride or die kind of people.
Yeah.
And I actually like being that kind of friend. I like being the kind of friend that people know he's with me no matter what. Like he's going to always support me, always going to have my back. I actually find incredible value in being that friend. And I have people in my life now that are those kinds of friends, and the value is pretty high, when you have that. And frankly, you're that kind of friend.
Yeah.
And so
I think so.
You become a full, blown adult,
Yeah.
And we still choose each other.
We still do. Oh, every day.
Yeah. And so, and ironically, sometimes we're not even against the same things.
No, I'm probably against more than you.
Yeah, I choose fewer things to be against.
Yeah.
And, but I think, this is, I think, an important lesson for me and takeaway when I listen to really effectively successful people like Will Guidara.
Yeah.
Their ability to have a healthy spectrum of relationships is really important.
Yeah.
And it still almost goes without exception. Every successful person I know has had a moment of betrayal by a really close friend. Like the story of Judas is like a self-repeating narrative throughout life of highly influential and successful people.
Yeah.
So, but the difference is those people did not let that betrayal jade them to where they could no longer trust people again. And what I find is the ones who end up hitting a wall are the ones when they experience betrayal, they never trust anyone again. And the ones that elevate beyond that experience is that they do not let that betrayal jade them from opening themselves up to new relationships and new people.
Openness and resilience are a unique thing,
Yeah.
because that's what I'm hearing you say. Because I think everyone has moments of betrayal. Everyone has moments where a relationship might fall apart, X, Y, Z. But it's really how you bounce back from that. Whether you don't become friends again, doesn't mean the relationship has to exist. And I think we as two people on this, at this table, and people who are listening, like, we have to become better at who we filter in and out of our lives, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
We have to. That's a forever journey of like learning who you should be for. Because that's the other thing is you can't just have everyone for you. You have to be for other people.
Yeah.
Right.
right.
It has to be symbiotic. It has to be a two-way street. That I do meet people. I can't be friends with people who need you to only be for them. I have friends like that.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, sorry. Like, you get the absolute loyalty when I get that back, right? And then and I'm absolutely, I can be more for you than you are for me. But if you're not for me, it reveals itself really fast. And the most healthy I've ever felt in my life, or when I feel like I have people in my life that I can easily be for, and then they can be for me.
Yeah.
And this last year I actually cut out a whole crew of friends that I was really close with for 2 years. But I realized I was so for them. They were not so for me. At the moment that my focus shifted, right? Hey, I can't actually give you as much of myself as I would like to. It actually was harder for them to accept it than for me to accept it. For me, I had to make a personal adjustment of how much time I allocated. For them, it was betrayal and, oh no, you're not actually one of us anymore. It was really interesting. I was like, oh, that's okay, because I'm not.
Yeah.
That's
chapter 3 of Mind Shift. You can't take everyone with you.
But I could either wallow in the sadness, or hey, I'm giving you more space and time to get people who are more for you.
Yeah.
And I am now so much more freed up to be more for the people that I can be for.
Yeah. When you go through chapter 3, you want to circle back to chapter 1. It's all about people. It just may be a new set of people at that stage in your life.
Yes.
Just based on the realities of where the journey that you're on takes you.
Yes.
Yes. But it has been for me a very liberating thing to go. Kim and I, we've been married 40 years, and sometimes she'll feel sad going, look at all the people who've come and gone, because if you live long enough, people come and go.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I said, what we shouldn't look at is how many people have come and gone.
Yeah.
What we really want to look at is, do people elevate because they've come?
Yeah.
And are their lives better?
Yeah.
Because our lives were part of their lives, and because we don't want to hold anyone back. We want people to grow and expand and develop. And I remember one time we had this person we both really loved, and they heard one of my messages about pursuing your dreams.
Who?
This is when you're just a little guy.
Okay.
And so they got up and moved to Paris and became a culinary chef.
Who was this?
And you don't know them, but it was.
How did we love them then?
What?
How did we love them?
Your mom.
Oh,
and
we're the only we up here right now.
No. And she was so sad. She goes, "Why do you have to cast vision and tell people to pursue their dreams?" I just lost one of my friends. And I go, "Yeah, but do you want your friend to stay in LA and wish they had gone to Paris to become a chef, or do you want to lose your friend in a sense and let them go pursue that dream in their life?" And
I do think friendships should be incubators for greatness.
Yeah.
Right. Like that is the sad reality of friendships.
Yeah.
Is that when they're great friendships, you inspire each other, you drive each other, you sharpen each other, and then you go out into the world and put that into practice.
Yeah.
Like my greatest friendships, I have less time for now.
Yeah.
They have less time for me.
Yeah.
Right. And I always am like curious. I'm not someone who I now have long friendships because I've been an adult for longer.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't have a lot of childhood friends. Mm-hmm. I have some amazing people I've known since childhood.
Yeah.
But there's, Kev's probably the only one.
That's who came to mind.
And we had two and a half decades where we weren't close.
Yeah.
Because we weren't even.
But then your journeys brought you back together.
And then our journeys, in college, and then in friendship, and church, and friendship again. And so, but I will say, because I cuddle. You were kind of like this, but if you were in high school, I didn't want to mess with you. High school to me was not an enjoyable experience. That's all triggering. Get me out of here. And I had one teacher that I really loved, and then when I went and said hi to her 2 years ago, she didn't remember me, and it made me laugh. I was like, oh, what's amazing is that there's people who don't even remember you, but they affected you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I was like, what an honor to be someone she didn't remember, but she changed my life.
That's awesome.
And really encouraged me, and that was just her being good.
Yeah.
Right? Like she wasn't even trying. Like when I really try with someone, I remember forever. I'm like, I tried so hard, I'm like, it's like a Linkin Park song. But with her, she was just being her, Yeah. It was like, oh, okay, I experienced your goodness.
That's right. I'd be so curious, just from everyone who listens to the Mindshift podcast, how many of you went to your high school reunion?
You're a psychopath.
And how many went to your college reunion? Because
I've
never gone to a single high school. How about you, Austin? No. I didn't go to my high school reunion because I don't think I particularly liked myself in high school. So I don't know if I want to go see the people who knew me then. And then I didn't go back to my college reunion because I didn't think there'd be anyone that I even met or knew during that time that might even be there.
Yeah.
I'm not very good at reconnecting backwards. I just have to say.
I have a cliche for you.
Okay.
That actually Carl gave me back in the day. And it was a very fitting one because I didn't actually needed that at the moment. But he's like, whatever keeps you, like your head turning back will keep you from like facing the direction you're supposed to be going in. Mm-hmm. And he said it better than I just did. But that essentially was the principle. And I was like, oh, it actually is like, because the way I would rephrase it is you spend too much time looking at a map versus just living your life and going forward.
Yeah.
Right? Like I'm looking at the map of the things I need to do. I'm looking for a map to tell me where to go versus just picking a direction and heading in that.
Okay, funniest thing. Those books, Rick Steves?
Oh yeah, the books that mom would always read while we were in the place.
Whenever we traveled the world, she would just buy that Rick Steves and go crazy on Rick Steves, right?
Rick Steves is a G.
So we're driving. I think it's through
Scotland.
No, it might have been Scotland, yeah, or
I think
France or someplace like that.
I think it was Scotland.
And she's looking at the picture, going, "Look how beautiful this is," and literally, the photograph was right in front of us.
It was a castle.
I'm going, honey, if you would look up and get your head out of the book, it's right in front of you.
Yeah, it's interesting when you miss things on the map because you're not looking up from it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That we spend so much time with our heads buried, we forget to like live life in the moment and experience the world around us. That is so mom. That is so mom.
So I look back and I go, I don't have any friends from high school or any friends from college that I still connect to. But I have one friend I connect to from my master's program, and Randy.
Oh, yeah.
And love him. Great. We were roommates. And, but I also realize there's a reason for that.
Okay.
I've changed so much.
Yes.
That the connecting point isn't there.
Yeah.
Not because of them, but because at those stations of my life, I spend most of my energy trying to be who I thought people wanted me to be.
Okay.
And then once I left all the structures of school, academics, the institutions that I was a part of, once I went on my own, I became less and less and less like the person who they knew in that experience.
Right.
And because when you're playing football together, everyone experiences you as a football player. They don't realize you're a philosopher. They just know you, as a running back or a linebacker.
Right.
And I realized that so much of who I really was, no one ever knew. And it wasn't their fault. I never gave anyone.
Do you think you knew?
No.
Right. Like I don't mean that in a negative way. I'm like, do you think you were cognitive of how different you would become?
No, I think that the person I really was a neurosis inside of me, in my mind.
Okay.
Like who I really was something broken that doesn't fit into the world. And then who I was trying to be was something I was creating, but wasn't really me. So I think most of my life, I worked really hard at being someone that could be acceptable. And so you realize,
was there a transition or like a fork in the road moment when you realized that you no longer wanted to be acceptable, you wanted to be exceptional?
Ooh, I got goosebumps. Yeah, there was. And I think that was probably in my 20s when I began to, like cocoon myself out.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I wasn't sure. The part of me that I think was waiting to be exceptional, it always felt wrong.
Okay.
Or I wasn't sure if it was, it's like, is it rebellion? Or is it uniqueness, right? Is it me just refusing to grow up and be an adult, or is it me actually growing up and being different? And so I don't know if other people maybe are more self-aware. I always was uncertain. Yeah. I felt like there was like a flip. For a long time, I felt like the part of me who now I know is me always felt like I was supposed to overcome it. And then the part of me that I thought was supposed to be me, I would actually use all my energy to be it. And I think that's a challenging thing, especially with your mom being married to me for 40 years, is I just can't even fully factor the confusion that she experienced as I just kept evolving and growing and changing from the person she married at 25 to the person that, I was at 45. And she would tell me, I don't know what happened to you. And there were times where I would change my whole way of seeing reality, my whole way of seeing the world. And I didn't know how to tell her. It was really scary to be able to go, hey, this is how I see the world. and it didn't always go well.
No, I didn't always go
You
well.
know?
But I do think there's like, I really commend her. That's probably one of the hardest things she's done in life.
Yeah.
Is like stayed, people might think it might be the opposite. You got to explore the world. You were this very, cool guy. You became this really like eccentric fashionista, like thought leader. You know what I mean? Like you really became, and mom kind of like, mom is mom. and like she's a rock.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? And I think it was harder for her to stay with you than it was for you to stay with her.
Yeah.
Like, not in a mean way.
Yeah,
I think the journey, like most people would see the opposite, and I'd be like, no, I think my mom had it harder.
Yeah.
My mom had to, you would come back different from your trips.
Yeah.
And she remained like, really, she's grown so much, but I mean like her growth is different, but she would remain the same, right? And she always grew in intelligence. She's a really smart
strong
person.
Core beliefs.
Yes, but she ain't not changing. Jesus could come down and be like, and she'd be like, nope, this is the Jesus I know, not you, Jesus. She's just she's a woman with massive character and
conviction,
like, conviction, and she lived her life like that. And so there's something that, I commend her ability to adapt.
Yeah.
And her lack thereof, and self-awareness of like, I don't adapt well, so let me fight this and then realize I'm not going to win,
Yeah, one of the rare vacations we took by ourselves, we went to Greece.
Okay.
And we were in Crete, and we're in this pool, and Greece was bankrupt as a country, so we were in this whole massive resort by ourselves. It's pretty amazing. And we're sitting in the pool, and I took a huge risk, and I remember going, honey, I need to tell you, where my thinking has taken me, how I see the world, and I didn't do that often.
Yeah.
And I remember just kind of like being super transparent, and in a Kim way, she looked at me, she goes, are you saying you don't believe in Jesus anymore?
Yeah.
And I said, that didn't come anywhere near saying that. How did you hear that?
Yeah.
And it's because there's a sense where if you think Pluto is a planet and then you discover it's not a planet, you're not sure if the solar system works.
Yeah.
And I've never questioned my relationship with Jesus, but it's like he's the sun, but I do question all the other planets and the way everything is put together in the universe. And because for her, things really hold together in a cohesive way. And for me, I've always tried to figure out how the universe works, and I'm not always sure. When I watched Oppenheimer,
did you enjoy it?
I actually did really enjoy Oppenheimer.
I enjoyed it too. Yeah.
And went back and watched it a second time.
Yeah.
And just tried to listen to the nuances of it. And when I was finished, I always think through like at a personal level, I go, I wish I had had better math teachers.
I wish I'd never met a math teacher.
Because I finished it going, how people ask, if you didn't choose this career, if you could do it over again, what other career would you choose?
Yeah. You get asked that question a lot.
Yeah. And I realized I would have loved studying quantum mechanics and quantum physics. Like I could have easily been that more esoteric person who would have loved spending his life. And I said, they just didn't tell me one thing that I needed to hear. If they had told me at the beginning of my journey in math, the reason you need to study math is in here you will discover the secret of the universe, I would have wiped out every other class and just studied math. Because what really struck me, and I think it's one of the reasons I always end up going back and loving math and loving physics and all these things, is I didn't know. See, I wasn't interested in that 2 apples plus 2 apples equals 4 apples.
Yeah.
Like it just didn't like capture me. But if someone had said to me, if you can learn how to do this, there's going to be a next level. And if you can learn how to do that, there's going to be a next level. And then at one of these levels, you'll discover the meaning of the universe. They would own me.
I believe you. I believe you. But if you have Christopher Nolan shooting your movie basically about physics and math, and he still can't explain it, I don't think you would have ever done it. Because there's this, and I am people who understand math. To me, I put it in a really beautiful box, because I'm like, you can see the things in between the things that exist, right? You can see nothing, right? It's like this really beautiful idea, but most of them cannot explain how to get from 2 + 2 to get me to the open expanse of like seeing nothing.
Yeah.
Right. And maybe it's my lack of understanding of math, but really, like, I don't think any teacher ever thought to go read American Prometheus. This is a story about a man who saw in between things, right? I had to scrape every inch of like emotional pool I could with every math teacher I've ever had. I even played volleyball for 2 years to get a C in math. But I get what you're saying, like,
right? But there's like theoretics, theoretical physics, and that's the part that really like
that fascinates
me. Like going, and I love when in the movie where Oppenheimer goes, "You do this, you're better than me at math."
Yes.
By the way, that's a great leadership lesson. You got Oppenheimer in charge of the whole project, saying to people, "You're better than me. You're better than me. You're better than me." Like they were better at everything.
Yeah.
Right. And then Einstein really not being great at math.
Right.
He's great at in sense theoretical physics.
Yeah.
And because I think that's part of the driving fuel of every human being is trying to make sense of life. They just are doing it through math. You
do it through words.
Yeah, we do it through storytelling. Like what's a story that changes us? What's a story that elevates us?
Yeah, even the idea of 7 frequencies, which we have in the arena, which is this like I don't know, 7-hour or 5-hour thing. I mean, we've talked about it so many times on the live call, so it's endless amount of hours around this concept about each of us communicate in a unique frequency.
Yeah.
Right, and then you help people kind of identify their frequency and then walk it back. Like this is what happens when your frequency is unhealthy. The shadow side. This is what happens when your frequency is healthy. When it's strong, here's your primary frequency. But now you need to adopt the skill set of the other 6 frequencies to become a well-rounded, like human being that communicates at a high level. And I don't know if there's enough importance built around that. I got a message on the arena, which is really cool because we have the school app that goes hand in hand. It's the community aspect of the arena. It's where you listen to and watch in the classroom, and they have all the videos uploaded. We got a comment on our like arena members board, and I love that they just comment. They answered each other's questions. Shout out Mark Burley. I can barely say his
Mark
last name.
For like 30 years.
I know. I've had him tell me how to say it so many times. But he's like the keeper of the house of the online board. But someone asked like, where's the written like backup? Like where's the written content around the 7 frequencies? And I was like, no, like this is a brand new concept idea that no one else is talking about. There's nowhere else in the world you can go to find this. This is the only place. It's like, this is in these videos, like study them, Well, I guess we can transcribe them, but I don't think people realize how important it is to find the things in between the spaces, right? And then to identify it. To like even the identity and the realization of frequency is so unique, right? That like why people's favorite colors are the way they are is because there's a frequency of light that we see faster than other frequencies. And everything in the world around us is categorized within like these frequencies that we can hear and understand or see and describe. And I don't know, this is an interesting, I don't know where we are in this. I just think it's an interesting journey of communication now that we're having. But yeah, sorry. Where do we go from here?
Yeah. One of the things that really strikes me is the gap between what we experience and what we know.
Yep.
I mean, one of the challenging things for me this last month is that I have one eye that has healed pretty well, and one eye that's just not healing.
Yeah.
And when I look in the mirror and I have to take photographs and keep myself updated and send it to the doctors and stuff, is that it's always backwards. It's really weird. Like when you look in the mirror and then you take a photograph, sometimes I've had to put my finger up to go, this is the eye that's good. And then I can see it in the photograph because it's always backwards. And realize you're never seeing yourself the way other people see you. Like not even in your mirror reflection. I want to create a mirror that actually shows you the way other people see you. I thought that would be like such an
it's unique,
interesting.
But, isn't there a setting on the iPhone? You're gonna have to overdub what you just said. We're talking about a mirror with panels that essentially does the same thing, right? Oh, that's so unique.
And so this month has just been like, it has so highlighted to me that my brain doesn't want to accept that this is the opposite me. And because a lot of times I'm looking, I'm going, okay, wait a minute, which eye is this one? And I'm having to actually put a marker there so I can see it in the photograph and go, okay, this is the way it's playing out. And I just wonder how many of us, like, what's your good side?
My good side?
Like, in your own mind, what's your good side?
I don't know.
But you do.
Yeah, what's my good side? You're asking me this right now? Oh, the in front?
Straight up.
Straight up.
Yeah.
I think I have a terrible profile. And it looks kind of scary from the profile.
Like everyone has like
a big nose and a little chin.
Everyone has like a personal good side.
Yeah.
And
what's yours?
I
can tell you right now.
Right now it's my right side. It's funny. It's so bad. But you only need one good side.
It's good. It's the side we shoot you from.
Yeah, there you go. And but like everyone has a good side in their own mind. But is it the same good side that other people see? See, because if you're seeing the opposite version of yourself in the mirror, is it possible that you are actually wrong about which side looks better to other people? And then if you apply that to our own persona and our own identity, you're going, what if we think we're stronger when we're because we're coming across a certain way, but we're actually weaker when we come across that way? Like, what if we think we're more charismatic when we're acting a certain way, but we're actually more insecure to people. We're acting that way. I'm just wondering how many times the mirror opposite is true. Like when we're calm and we don't think, oh, I'm not really making a great impact on people. That's when people go, wow, he's so compelling and charismatic. He doesn't seem to worry about anything. And so I just started thinking about that in terms of just even of what's happening like in our conversations on Mindshift. A lot of times we think, oh, this conversation isn't connecting to people. Then we get texts going,
that was the best one yet.
That was the best one yet. And other times we think we're on fire. We think it's amazing, and we don't get any comments or any feedback. Which probably
the comments are, why does Aaron talk so much? And always interrupt everyone. I'm like, oh, okay. I'm sorry I was born.
But anyway.
He did this to himself.
But this is one of the reasons I love doing this podcast is because I think most humans discover the greatest insights about themselves in the conversations. That if you think you know yourself most truly when you're being introspective and self-reflective, you may not know yourself very well because you best know yourself through human interaction and engagement. Like if you think you're patient, but everyone thinks you're impatient, you got the wrong radar. It doesn't matter if you think you're kind. It matters if other people see you as kind. It doesn't matter if, it doesn't matter how you see yourself in the end if it doesn't connect with how other people are seeing you. And because the best way of seeing yourself is through the mirror of other human beings. Does that make sense?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I mean, I always find it interesting. I'm a huge Harry Potter fan, and I always find it interesting is it the first movie or the second movie where he finds the mirror that shows you what you want to see. So it'd always show him with his parents. And I'm always like interested, right? Because I'm like, we always look for a mirror. And I always know this, like women always do this, right? I do it sometimes, but I don't notice it as much. But like women can tell if a mirror is true or not. Like when women walk in front of a mirror, they're like, this mirror is too wide or too long, or it's like an actual representation of me. Have you been with no. I have walked, who is it? I was with Kevin and Robbie in London, and Robbie was like, she's like, I got a new mirror. And I was in her house. And I was like, okay, cool. What happened to the old mirror? The old mirror was sick. And she was like, no, that mirror made you look wide. And I was like, oh, that makes sense because I always feel too skinny, so I loved that mirror.
But I wonder if in department stores, they use mirrors in the women's department to make them look thinner. Oh. So that they could try and address, they go, ooh, I like the way this dress makes me look.
Go try on clothes. I think they probably used to, right? Oh. So Austin said that they used to, and they got in trouble legally. Bring them back. Let me look skinny or wide. No, it's really interesting concept, right? Because we will always look for the things that make us look better or feel better about ourselves.
That's interesting because in the movie Love Actually,
Yeah.
which is actually a great
Yeah, it's a great movie.
The assistant to Hugh Grant, who is the president or the prime minister of England, everyone talks about her as if she's chubby. And every conversation about her is her being overweight or pudgy. And he falls in love with her. And he's like, why do you call her that? Like, he doesn't see her that way.
Right.
Which is who she falls in love with. So I wonder if you're looking for the person who they see you the way you want the mirror to show you.
Right. Yeah. People want to be seen for their best qualities, right?
Yeah. And so that whole movie.
It's why beautiful women want to be seen as intelligent, why intelligent women want to be seen as beautiful. It's why, strong men want to be fit into skinny jeans, and why, little men want to be big. Like we are always searching for the opposite of us. Or the same, right?
But more.
But more. It's why we buy dogs that look like us.
I just want someone who sees me as having two good eyes.
You do when you close them.
Yeah.
I'm joking. No, you do. But it's I don't know where we're landing this plane. We've been going for like 50 minutes.
All right.
Yeah. So I think we're good.
We should land the plane because I have to go to the doctor's office.
Well, I do think no.
Check out my lazy eye.
Yes, go. Yes, you gotta go to the doctor's office. We'll be praying for you. And honestly, it was just nice to catch up and jump on the pod in the midst of the hecticness. Hopefully, we can shoot another one next week and just get a couple in before the end of the year. If we don't get to talk to you guys, I want to just say Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. And we're so grateful that you guys have joined us this year and on this journey for the last 6 or 7 years that we've been doing Battle Ready and now Mind Shift. It's been the biggest gift to meet people around the world who come up to me. I mean, I'm someone who avoids recognition in that way, but I was on my plane to Mexico City from LA, and the steward was like, man, I love Mosaic and I love Mind Shift.
Oh, wow.
And it was so cool. And I invited him to church on Sunday in Mexico City, and he came, which was so sweet. And I think he brought his boyfriend, which was like very sweet. And it was just fun. And his boyfriend was like, oh my gosh, like I love Mind Shift. And then there was a guy from Colombia that was there and was like, I love Mind Shift. And I was in London, and I was in a random coffee shop, Dad. I haven't even told you this. It was in a coffee shop called Ometisando, which I really love. It's off of something circus, I don't know. I think. And this is a random little coffee shop, at least to me. It's not Ami Leon. It's not all these spots that everybody I know goes to. And I'm sitting in the window, and within 30 seconds, someone just goes, hey, I love Mind Shift. Thank you so much. And it ended up being really funny because we ended up running into each other at 2 other spots afterwards, and I met their whole family, and it was really a generous thing. But this, it's just shout out to the people who listen. This wouldn't be possible without you, and it wouldn't be as fun without.
And we
people.
love our Mind Shift community, man. We love you guys.
Yeah. So end of the year, if you haven't, my only ask this year would be this: share your favorite episode to a friend that's never heard about us, and rate and review this podcast, and pick up Mind Shift. If you haven't picked up the book, pick it up.
This is the best response I think I've ever gotten to a book.
Yes.
And so I just encourage people to pick up Mind Shift. You can read it in one night.
It's an incredibly short read.
Yeah, the audiobook is 3 hours and 7 minutes.
Yeah, it's beautiful. So if you read or if you listen, and I ran into Martwan in LA when he was here for conference, and I caught him. It was the week the book had released. He listens to the audiobook while he reads along with it.
Oh, that's so good.
So, because I was like, yo, what are you doing? He's like, oh, I'm actually listening to the audio at the same time. And I was like, oh, that's really interesting. So anyways, thank you for listening. We're so grateful for you. Rate and review this podcast on YouTube. You can hit subscribe, give us a thumbs up, leave us a comment. Spotify, Apple, leave us a review. I want to break 1,000 on Spotify for reviews, and we're really grateful for you guys.